Chapter 2. Illustration. Mr. Bennet was among the earliest of those who waited on Mr. Bingley. He had always intended to visit him, though to the last always assuring his wife that he should not go, and till the evening after the visit was paid she had no knowledge of it. It was then disclosed in the following manner. Observing his second daughter employed in trimming a hat, he suddenly addressed her with Degree I hope Mr. Bingley will like it, Lizzie. Plus or minus. Degree we are not in a way to know what Mr. Bingley likes, plus or minus, said her mother, resentfully. Degree since we are not to visit plus or minus. Degree but you forget, mamma, plus or minus, said Elizabeth. Degree that we shall meet him at the assemblies, and that Mrs. Long has promised to introduce him plus or minus. Degree I do not believe Mrs. Long will do any such thing. She has two nieces of her own. She is a selfish, hypocritical woman, and I have no opinion of her. Plus or minus. Degree no more have I, plus or minus, said Mr. Bennet. Degree and I am glad to find that you do not depend on her serving you. Plus or minus. Mrs. Bennet deigned not to make any reply, but, unable to contain herself, began scolding one of her daughters. Degree Don, keep coughing so, Kitty, for heaven's sake. Have a little compassion on my nerves. You tear them to pieces. Plus or minus. Degree Kitty has no discretion in her coughs, plus or minus, said her father. Degree she times them ill. Plus or minus. Degree I do not cough for my own amusement, plus or minus, replied Kitty, fretfully. Degree when is your next ball to be, Lizzie, plus or minus. Degree tomorrow fortnight. Plus or minus. Degree I, so it is, plus or minus, cried her mother. Degree and Mrs. Long does not come back till the day before, so, it will be impossible for her to introduce him, for she will not know him herself. Plus or minus. Degree then, my dear, you may have the advantage of your friend, and introduce Mr. Bingley to her. Plus or minus. Degree impossible, Mr. Bennet, impossible, when I am not acquainted with him myself. How can you be so teasing, plus or minus. Degree I honor your circumspection. A fortnight guess acquaintance is certainly very little. One cannot know what a man really is by the end of a fortnight. But if we do not venture, somebody else will, and after all, Mrs. Long and her nieces must stand their chance, and, therefore, as she will think it an act of kindness, if you decline the office, I will take it on myself. Plus or minus. The girls stared at their father. Mrs. Bennet said only, Degree nonsense, nonsense, plus or minus. Degree what can be the meaning of that emphatic exclamation, plus or minus, cried he. Degree do you consider the forms of introduction, and the stress that is laid on them, as nonsense? I cannot quite agree with you. There. What say you, Mary? For you are a young lady of deep reflection, I know, and read great books, and make extracts. Plus or minus. Mary wished to say something very sensible, but knew not how. Degree while Mary is adjusting her ideas, plus or minus, he continued. Degree let us return to Mr. Bingley. Plus or minus. Degree I am sick of Mr. Bingley, plus or minus, cried his wife. Degree I am sorry to hear that. But why did you not tell me so before? If I had known as much this morning, I certainly would not have called on him. It is very unlucky, but as I have actually paid the visit, we cannot escape the acquaintance now. Plus or minus. The astonishment of the ladies was just what he wished, that of Mrs. Bennet perhaps surpassing the rest, though when the first tumult of joy was over, she began to declare that it was what she had expected all the while. Degree how good it was in you, my dear Mr. Bennet. But I knew I should persuade you at last. I was sure you loved your girls too well to neglect such an acquaintance. Well, how pleased I am. And it is such a good joke, too, that you should have gone this morning, and never said a word about it till now. Plus or minus. Degree now, Kitty, you may cough as much as you choose, plus or minus, said Mr. Bennet, and, as he spoke, he left the room, fatigued with the raptures of his wife. Degree what an excellent father you have, girls, plus or minus, said she, when the door was shut. Degree I do not know how you will ever make him amends for his kindness, or me either, for that matter. At our time of life, it is not so pleasant, I can tell you, to be making new acquaintances every day, but for your sakes we would do anything. Lydia, my love, though you are the youngest, I dare say Mr. Bingley will dance with you at the next ball, plus or minus. Degree oh, plus or minus, said Lydia, stoutly, degree I am not afraid, for though I am the youngest, I am the tallest that, plus or minus. The rest of the evening was spent in conjecturing how soon he would return Mr. Bennet's visit, and determining when they should ask him to dinner. Illustration, degree I am the tallest, plus or minus. Illustration. Degree he rode a black horse, plus or minus.